Gotcha. I hear you. I hear me. How you doing, Pano?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you. Is that an old Rush Limbaugh tie?
That it is.
I bet it is. I love those ties. Did you kill anything down there when you went scuba diving?
All the time.
Good. That's not part of my lesson.
You don't need help taking that wire off of you.
Huh?
You look like you're wired up.
Yeah, I'm wired up, but I'm just trying to, I get confused on where things are anymore. How to undo them. We'll get there. How's that? I am so grateful to be here with y'all. I know so many of you for many, many years. And they go fast, Kelso. The years go fast, don't they? Say again? That's exactly right. The older you get, the faster it goes. I had my youngest son several years ago. He was about 7 or 8 years old. I don't think I told you about this before, but if I have, well, I'll tell you again. It's one of my favorite little stories to tell people. I'm sitting there in the living room in my home, and my son Daniel, about 7 or 8 years old, he's sitting on the couch, and he looked very forlorn. He had this look on him that was, when a dad looks at one of their children and they have this countenance upon them, I felt compelled to ask him, Daniel, you look concerned about something. You want to tell me about it? He said, yeah. I said, what are you thinking about? And this is what he said. Dad, I don't want to go to hell. And I said, great. Because we don't have to. We don't have to. Because of something that God did for us. And that is he offered his son up as a sacrifice so that we don't have to die. And then my oldest son, on an event that happened, we had some tragedies and losses of life and among my friends, and they were drowned at sea. And my oldest son at the time was 4 years old. And we had lots of people in our home to help encourage us and stuff. And my oldest son, 4 years old, asked me this question. Dad, how is God going to get them out of that sea? And all I said was, it's called the resurrection. Now, to a 4-year-old, that's probably not going to make a lot of impression. But that's the answer to these things that happen. That when we die, there's going to be a time where we die, and then we face the judgment, and then God is going to make a decision about our eternal destinies. And there's going to be a resurrection of life to those who are that belong to him. Now, why am I saying that? Well, because the first child, my son Daniel, he just made a declarative statement and his declarative statement was, I don't want to go to hell. And again, that's just a great thing to say to yourself and to other people, because the words that we speak, they have power. There was a guy named Solomon. You remember this guy named Solomon? Well, there's a guy named Jesus that said of this guy named Solomon, he said, Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. And if Jesus said that about Solomon, here's my conclusion. What he said about Solomon was true. Because Jesus didn't blow smoke. Jesus didn't exaggerate things. Jesus just spoke truth. And when Jesus says that Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived, I'm going to take that to the bank and say that that's true. And because so many of the things that Solomon said were just astoundingly profound. And one of the things that Solomon said was that there's the power of life and death are found in the tongue. Life and death. Those are big issues. Life is a big, big issue. It's a big deal to think about the concept of life. That is a really big, profound topic. One very worthy of our thought process. The power of life and death are found in the tongue. The words that we speak are able to give life to people, and the words that we speak are also quite capable of destroying people, killing people. Satan is referred to as the liar and the father of lies, and there's no truth in him. And anything that Satan says, we just need to be suspect no matter how he states it. But the power of life and death is found in the tongue. And so the words that we speak can bring life to ourselves and life to other people. The words that we speak can bring death to ourselves and death to other people. There's a concept, and when my son spoke these things, when my son Daniel said, Dad, I don't want to go to hell, there's power in that statement there. There's something that my son can think about and go, you know, this is my declarative statement. I don't want to be lost. And that will really help you stay on the path of life. I mean, it'll really help. It really will. And then when my 4-year-old asked, how's God going to get them out of that sea? Well, he's 4 years old. I just want him to keep thinking about stuff like that as he grows older. That same older son asked me this question one time. Questions are a very, very, very good way for us to learn. They really are. We can learn a lot by asking questions of other people and asking questions of ourselves. And so there's power in the ability to ask questions. And the question that he asked again was, how's God going to get them out of that sea? But he also asked me another question several years later. He said, Dad, how do we know that we're right in the sight of God? And I said, that is a great question. A great question. And that question can bring life, but if we ignore the question and the answers to the question, they can bring death. How do we know that we're right? Well, what I told him was, we just have to search, seek, hunger, thirst, knock, ask, because all those concepts of what Jesus is referring to about the heart of his people, that we are to be a people that hunger and thirst. We have an insatiable appetite for the things of God. We want the things of God more than anything else. We hunger, and Jesus said, guess what? I'm the bread of life. He's got plenty of food to answer the questions that we ask. He's the living water. So he's got an abundant supply of bread and water that will bring life to us. So the thing that I told my son when he asked me the question, how do we know that we're right? I said, well, we just got to keep asking. And I said, this is what I want you to never forget. I never want you to quit asking that question. I want you to always ask that question. Always ask, is this right? Is what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, what I'm doing, is this the right thing to do? Is this the thing that pleases Almighty God? The words that we speak, the questions that we ask, the declarative statements that we make have power to sustain us. I want to share with you a passage that I only recently ran into in the book of Isaiah. And I want to just share some thoughts from this Isaiah chapter 50. This section of Isaiah, I remember a kid told me years ago, he said, I asked him, what have you been doing? He said, I've been studying the book of Isaiah. And I didn't know Isaiah from Kenny. And so, and he made this statement to me. He said, Isaiah is the most messianic of all the prophets, or at least close to it. And when we say Isaiah is the most messianic, what do we mean? He says a whole lot about the Messiah, the answer to all of our questions, the source of life, the Messiah. Isaiah tells us about the Messiah. And I want to turn with you to Isaiah chapter 50. Follow along with me here for a minute. We're going to look at some things about the tongue, the attitude that we have, the questions that we can ask, the declarative statements that we can make, the things that help us to understand, hey, this is really good to think about and good to say. The Lord has given me the tongue of the learned. This is a section, again, that refers to Messiah. Now let's look at it. This is the Messiah stating through the prophet Isaiah that he's recognizing one of the things that God has done is he has given him the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him who is weary. God has given the Messiah a tongue, and the power of life and death is in the tongue. The tongue of the learned, this is an important thing to consider as we recognize that God has given us a tongue to speak. Messiah is also indicating here that he's also given him ears to hear. He's given him ears to hear and a tongue to speak, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him who is weary. He awakens me in morning by morning. He awakens my ear to hear as the learned. He's given me a tongue to speak, but he's also given me an ear to hear. And then what? And I was not rebellious. Here's a recognition that what God has done for people, he's given us a tongue that we can use to speak, the power of which again has life and death in it, but he's also given us an ear to hear, and they're both really important. And maybe somebody has made this observation to you, the Lord has given us 2 ears and 1 tongue, and what does that mean? That means maybe we ought to do twice as much listening as we do talking. We ought to do twice as much listening as we do talking. Solomon mentioned in the Proverbs that one of the things about a fool is they do a lot of talking. A lot of talking. And they don't do a lot of hearing. But look at what Messiah says here. He awakens my ear to hear as the learned. The Lord has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious, nor did I turn away. I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out the beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting. Now, let me make an observation for you. You remember when Jesus was in the garden on the night that he was betrayed? What did he do? He separated himself from his disciples who were asleep. And he goes out into the midst of the garden and he starts talking to God. And this is what he asks God. And these kinds of things, these questions, are really, really important that we ask, and we're really interested in an answer. We ask questions. That's part of hungering and thirsting and seeking and knocking and so forth. We ask questions, but we give both ears to hear the answer. And the question that Jesus asked the Father on that night was, Lord, is there any way you'd take this cup away from me? Now, what was he talking about? He was talking about what Isaiah here refers to, that Jesus was not rebellious. I didn't turn away. I gave my back to those who struck me, my cheeks to those who plucked out my beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting. But Jesus asked the Father, will you take this cup away from me? And the imagery here is the drinking of something. And in this context, that which God has called upon the Son to drink of is a cup of anguish. It's a cup of wrath. It's a cup of suffering. It's a cup of death. And you know what God told him? I've given you the cup. Drink it. You drink it. If that's what God has given, and that's part of God's will for you, that you suffer. Peter refers to this. Don't let anybody suffer as an evildoer, but if you suffer as a Christian, let him glorify God in this behalf. But Jesus was given a cup to drink. And he asked God, will you take it away? And God said, no, I won't. In a similar circumstance in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, the Apostle Paul goes before God and he asks God to do something for him. In that particular place, Paul had what was referred to as a thorn in the flesh. I don't know what the thorn was, but I do know this. Paul identifies the thorn in this way. This thorn in my flesh is a messenger of Satan. I don't know what the message was. I know the source. It was Satan. And Paul asked God, will you take this thorn away from me? And you know what God said? No. I'm not going to take the thorn away from you. I want you to understand it's okay to ask questions like that. It's okay to ask God, God, will you deliver me from my suffering, whatever the form of suffering is. And oftentimes our suffering is a source, again, that comes from Satan himself. And sometimes our suffering is a result of what we think. Of what we think. That's our source of suffering. Satan loves to get us to think about chaos and disorder. But Paul asked God, will you take this cup away from me? He said, I've asked him 3 times. Is it okay to ask 4? Absolutely. You want to ask 4? Knock yourself out. But Paul was interested in asking a question, but you know what he was really interested in, and the thing that God told him? He was interested in God's answer. And God's answer on that particular occasion was, no, I'm not going to take away from you this messenger of Satan, this thorn in the flesh. By the way, let me offer an observation to you. There's a guy on religious podcasts that I look at from time to time. He was making the observation that the word thorn that's used in this particular place, this is the only place, the guy says, the only place it's used in the New Testament, the word thorn. And his contention was, and there's some validity to it. I've looked this word up and thought about a little bit about it. He said the word that's translated thorn there should more accurately, or can more accurately be translated or described as a wooden stake. And they use the word stake, this word stake, in a military. They would take these sharpened wooden shafts and they would drive them in the ground in front of their positions to help defend them from an army that is assaulting them. And those stakes were designed not to stick people in the side and irritate them like a thorn, but to impale them. It was a piece of wood that would bring death. And if we can just make the connection here for you, anything that Satan brings into your life, Satan is not interested so much in irritating you and me. What he's interested in is killing us. That's what he's interested in. Oh, he'll irritate. He'll bring irritation to us. But that irritation is designed first and foremost to kill you, to take you away from God and God's purpose and God's goal and God's life for you. And so when Paul says Satan has delivered this thorn in my flesh, this stake that I can impale myself on, or that is impaling me, will you take it away? And God said no. And this is what he tells him. My grace is sufficient for you. You know what's enough? You know what's sufficient? The grace of Almighty God. This grace that is greater than all of our sin. This word that we ought to learn to speak more frequently in our own existence. I'm focusing on the power of the grace of God, because that will really help me keep myself straight. That will really help me learn to think and to say things to myself and to other people that will give them life. My grace is sufficient. That's all you need. That's it. And we learn to focus on the blessing and the grace of Almighty God. Kelso told me this morning that he was very thankful. You know, Kelso's getting kind of old, but he said, I'm thankful every day for the life that God has given me. And that's a good thing to be thankful. Being thankful is a way to speak to ourselves, to say to ourselves, you know what? I've got some aches and pains, and I can't do what I used to be able to do. But I'm thankful. And God's grace is sufficient for me. So here in Isaiah chapter 50, I was not rebellious. I didn't turn away from drinking the cup that God said I'm going to have to drink in order to be pleasing to Him. You drink the cup, then you get the crown. There was a guy that wrote a series of articles years ago, and the essence of his message in one of our Brotherhood magazines was first the cross, then the crown. First the cross, then the crown. There's an order here. And the order is that sometimes the crosses and the cups have to come first. I wish all the young people were in here. I've got something I want to share with you. All of us in here have been around long enough to know that there are times when we can look at ourselves or we can look at what other people are doing or not doing. And we can go, that was dumb. But last week, some friends, dear friends, they have a daughter who's 25 years old. Raised by godly parents, grandparents. Had a lot of family to help support her and teach her over the years. And this 25-year-old girl tells her mom, "I'm moving in with my boyfriend." And there were lots of people that cried a lot. And this, another thing, what she said to her mother, she said, "Mom, I know you're not going to agree with me. Listen to the way she was thinking. Mom, I'll be glad to talk to you, but only if you're not mean." Only if you're not mean. Now that being translated means what? Only if you tell me and not be mean. When we say the power of life and death lies in the tongue, and when we look at our world around about us, and if you haven't noticed, there seems to me at least to be a level of foolishness in our country and the way that people think that has astounded many. The things that the prophet said about the people that they call light darkness, and they call darkness light, and they call a lie the truth, and they call the truth a lie. And I don't know how many times this statement is found in the Old Testament, but God refers to the people from time to time by saying, "Every man did that which was right in his own eyes." And as soon as that is the standard of determining right or wrong, our own eyes, our own mind, our own understanding, our own self-talk, our own talk to other people, as soon as we raise ourselves up to the level of believing that everything is what's right or wrong is based upon the way I think and the way I feel, we have talked ourselves into a deep hole. So this young woman, whom I've known for 10 or 12 years, decides that she's going to move in with her boyfriend, and she doesn't want to hear anything from her mom that might be construed in her own heart and mind as being mean. It's a heartbreak. That is a heartbreak.
It was her choice.
She's 25 years old. And it's her choice. But the consequences of that, horrendous. The consequences are horrendous. If I may make just one observation about that, this goes along with the idea here of self-talk. What am I telling myself? I'm telling myself that somehow or another I can do that which so clearly violates what God has said and not suffer. And I'm sorry, the law of sowing and reaping has been in effect since day one, and we cannot sow to the wind and reap anything but the whirlwind. The decisions that we make, the things that we talk ourselves into thinking and believing that somehow or another this is going to be okay. There's a statement that Paul makes in the book of 1 Corinthians about the sexual sins. And if I may just be very plain, very blunt, there is, and there always has been, a serious problem with mankind with the sins that are sexual in nature. But Paul makes this observation that fornication is a sin against your own body. It's a sin against your own body. No other sin, as far as I know, is declared to be a sin against your own body. And if sin brings death, which that's what God said, the wages of sin is what? It's death. That sin against your own body will kill you. It will kill you. And I got a sneaky suspicion that in an audience of this size, many of you have seen the result of that kind of behavior. It'll kill you. And if we're not willing to listen, as Isaiah chapter 50 refers to the Messiah as going, He's opened my ears. I'm willing to listen. I was not rebellious against that which He told me that I was going to have to go through. I bared my back. I was beaten to a pulp. My beard was ripped out. I drank the cup. And if we're not willing to listen to that which God has said along those lines, there's going to be some consequences. So this beautiful young woman, 25 years old, decides, I'm going to move in with my boyfriend. She was asked, why don't y'all are thinking about getting married, why don't you just go ahead and get married? I mean, that'd just be a great idea to some degree. But we have ears that won't hear, self-talk that talks us into a pit, and that can ultimately kill us. We've got to be willing to take what the last part of verse 6 here in Isaiah 50 refers to. I didn't hide my face from shame and spitting. This is part of what, by the way, Isaiah 53, verse 10. It pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. It pleased God to do that. It pleased God to offer his son and to shame his son and to have people spit on him. I've made this observation to several people over the years. You want to get in my face and talk smack to me? Okay. But if you start spitting in my face, we're probably going to have some reactions to that maybe I wouldn't react to simply by people talking to me, talking smack to me. But it pleased God to put his son through that, the shame of all that, the punishment, the humiliation of all that. It pleased God. It didn't make God happy to see his son going through that, you understand. But he knew that his son going through that was going to bring about a result that was going to be the redemption of mankind's souls. That's what it was going to take. And that's what God declared. That's what God said. And that's one of the things that we that have two ears need to do a better job of listening to. Listen to what God has said and God's perspective about things. I'm working on a lesson because I read this in one of the Psalms. It makes the declarative statement that God does as he pleases. And you and I, when we think about, well, you know what I'm going to do as I please, usually that's not going to end up very good for us. But when God says, I do what pleases me, I do what accomplishes my end goal. And of course, the ultimate end goal of God is to bring his people home with him. And you remember he made that statement in Genesis 3. He had this plan that was made from before the beginning of time, throughout all eternity, that God was going to bring about a means whereby people could be saved. He knew that he was going to make man, and he knew that man was going to make a mess of it. And that's all he's got to work with, is people that are messy, is people that are messed up. That's you and I. That's all he's got to work with. And we just got to be there to go, God, as messed up as I am, I just want you to use me. I just want you to help me to help other people. But he declared in the long ago that from the seed of woman there was going to be one that would arise that would crush the head of Satan. Do you believe that?
Yep.
We need to speak it to ourselves and to other people. There's a way out. There's a way out of this world that is so messy and so messed up, and a people that can be so messy and so messed up. There's a way out. That's what God said. We need to be like Messiah in Isaiah 50. He's given me a tongue to speak, but He's given me ears to receive wisdom. And so, I'll share one more point with you. I've got some good friends. This young woman, she's in her 40s. That's young. And she recently found out that her husband had been running around on her for a good while. And you know what that did to her? I said, let me tell you what's happened to you. You have just had an atomic bomb go off in your heart. We're not talking about a firecracker. We're talking about an atomic bomb. And this woman's faith has been so amazing, and her strength. But as time went on, and this is all part of this kind of a scenario, as time went on, she discovers more of the pieces that her unfaithful husband hadn't told her about. And all that does is reignite that bomb. And I just want to make one more observation. There's a guy named Jordan Peterson. Maybe you know of him. Kenny, you know Jordan Peterson? Pretty smart guy. He's a clinical psychologist. So he studies the mind of people. And he made the observation that the trauma of being betrayed, the trauma of being betrayed is the most catastrophic source of PTSD that he's ever seen. The trauma of being betrayed. I just want you to think about that. Thank you for your good attention.